Love and Light. This is Healthy Talk Show for Monday, October 28th, 2019. I'm Robert.
And I'm Marissa.
Show notes for this episode with links with everything we talk about are located over at healthytalkshow.com/28. On this episode of Healthy Talk Show, we have a large river cleaning device, a possible cure for celiac, and a controversial trans court case. But first...
An executive order that would remove cannabis from the federal controlled substances list. In a statement, Sanders' campaign said, "When we're in the White House, we're going to end the greed and corruption of the big corporations and make sure that Americans hit hardest by the war on drugs will be the first to benefit from legalization."
Damn.
Oh, dang.
all that with marijuana legalization? That's quite a statement.
Well, I don't think he'll be the nominee because he's going to take on the big drug companies, but yeah, that'd be great.
CBS News 2020 campaign reporter Kara Corti joins me now from Marshalltown, Iowa.
Right, so he wants to legalize the substance nationwide. He wants to codify that law, making it unchangeable through history. He says he would do that in the first 100 days of his administration with an executive order, but it goes further. He says that they want to create 4 different kinds of grant programs totaling $50 billion.
$50 billion?
To make it possible for people to incorporate themselves into the marijuana industry, especially communities of color and underserved communities. These incentive programs would act to basically even the playing field of this growing marijuana industry. He also wants to expunge the records of anyone with a prior marijuana offense. Something else that's interesting is he wants state governments to reevaluate sentencing for people that are currently incarcerated for marijuana crimes. So this is an extremely expansive bill that deals with the legalization of marijuana, but also the industry of marijuana.
Very interesting. He's not going to be elected, but a few points, decriminalization is important. But it's kind of weird that the socialist is talking about the industry of marijuana, and we need to have government grants to fund the industry of marijuana, but you're the socialist. I'm kind of confused. I'm really confused here.
That is funny.
Because marijuana is not it should not be a commercialized product. It's something that you grow in the backyard, grow out in the forest.
That's true.
So I'm not...
Yeah, I wish he hadn't attached the price tag to it.
yeah. Quite a large price tag. But he's not going to win. There's no way. And if you want more political deconstruction like that, dailyjuice.tv. NBC News. Rats are capable of driving tiny cars.
Researchers at the University of Richmond in Virginia taught rats to drive a tiny car made of a plastic food container as part of a study on mental health. With 3 copper bars for steering, rats press the right, left, or center bar in order to steer the car in their desired direction. In rectangular driving ranges that measured up to 4 square meters, food was placed at increasingly large distances in order to encourage the rats to navigate around the arena to reach their prizes. The rats were divided into 2 groups, one in enriched environments, filled with toys that the rats would be interested in playing with, and one group housed in normal cages. The rats housed in cages were far more likely to fail their driving tests than the rats housed with toys meant for brain stimulation. According to Kelly Lambert, a professor of behavioral neuroscience and one of the researchers on the project, that means the complex environment led to more behavioral flexibility. After analyzing the feces of the rats for hormones associated with stress and resilience, the researchers found that the training made the rats less stressed. Lambert stated that regardless of the housing, the training itself changed the hormones in a healthy trajectory.
Dang.
That's
pretty interesting.
Yeah. And they're talking about a lot of the aspects for mental health for people, and there's a lot of that talk.
So what were they implying?
I have no idea.
That I assume that people need mental stimulation.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
When I first read the headline, to be honest, I thought they were talking about that people should drive tiny cars or something. But now I understand mental stimulation is good. So watch Healthy Talk Show.
I think it's actually them trying to tie it in loosely with mental health awareness month or something.
Oh.
That's what it kind of felt like to me.
Yeah.
I just thought it was pretty cool. Bloomberg TikTok. Poyen Slats Ocean Cleanup reveals its new river cleaning interceptor device.
To catching plastic in rivers before it reaches the oceans. What we found is that 1,000 rivers are responsible for 80% of the pollution. The way it works is that...
Wait, did he say where those rivers were?
No, he did not.
See, I wish he had said that because I'm pretty sure they're in Asia.
Well, yes.
From this side, so the river flows and brings the plastic to the front of the machine. Then you see a barrier that guides the plastic to the mouth of the interceptor, where there is this conveyor belt that then scoops it out of the water and then distributes the plastic across 6 giant dumpsters. And with it, we can collect about 120,000 pounds of trash.
120,000 pounds of trash.
Is he going to answer my question of what about the fish?
No, people have asked that question.
Ah, dang it.
Every day. It's not a prototype. This is actually one out of
They're
4
running
machines that already exist in the world. 2 of whom are already deployed and actively cleaning plastic from rivers. Couldn't have imagined a much worse start of the year. Our big device in the middle of the ocean broke down.
It's a little embarrassing.
Uh-huh.
Keep in mind, this dude's 25.
Yeah, that's cool.
Young cat. I think it was a lot of crowdsourced stuff.
Oh.
According to what they say, but you never know if that's true. But they got off to a really well. Let's finish the video.
Bring it back to shore. So we took all those lessons. We rapidly adjusted the system. We launched again in June, and really earlier this month we announced that we now actually have a working system in the ocean. We now have a system that's catching plastic. I think we now have, for the first time ever, we have all the tools we need to solve this problem. There's really no excuse to not clean the oceans now.
There you go. No excuse except for the cost.
Yeah,
and,
a little simple.
Yeah, and the fact that in January you had huge problems, and oh man, the right wing media, they jumped on him though. They're your device is failing. They were all over him. It was hilarious. Because I looked.
That's funny.
But they're running now.
It is super cool, but it doesn't solve all the problems, and it doesn't talk about microplastics. So that's
it's really rad.
Yeah, it's super rad, but it also doesn't talk about the fish because that's always a drawback.
Yep.
But
CNN ran a story. No one believed him when he said he hadn't been drinking. Then researchers found his body was producing alcohol. They didn't have a video, so I dug back a few years ago and found a video about auto-brewery syndrome.
There is a big marketplace for brewing beer.
What's the date on that? I can't even read that. A few years ago. I can't read the date.
In Western New York, with a number of microbreweries to satisfy your taste buds. But would you be surprised to learn your
2016.
body could be one of them? It's a medical condition called auto-brewery syndrome.
It's a term for people who actually ferment carbohydrates into alcohol inside their body.
Dr. Barbara Cordell is a leading researcher of the condition, and though extremely rare, she says auto-brewery syndrome causes a person to become intoxicated, presenting with the telltale signs of having had too much to drink.
They're dizzy, they feel like they're slurring their words, they have a mental fog.
Such was the case for a Western New York woman facing a DWI charge after she was pulled over in Hamburg late last year.
Her 3.3 blood alcohol reading was 99% of it was due to this condition.
To put
That's her attorney, of course, arguing the case.
that is crazy.
Yeah.
that number in perspective, the legal limit in New York is 0.08. According to researchers, most people would be unconscious or even dead.
Not even be able to drive. Because
That's so crazy.
AC.
Her body adjusts to the constant presence of blood alcohol.
Maruzak had to fight to have the case thrown out by the judge in Hamburg, reaching out to Dr. Cordell and other experts to prove his client wasn't drunk.
Observed her for 12 hours under the supervision of a physician's assistant and 2 registered nurses to make sure she didn't drink any alcoholic beverages. We withdrew her blood on 3 occasions. Her readings were double, triple, and more than quadruple the legal limit.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine having to sit around for that?
Yeah, that is so...
That is crazy.
That sucks. CBS New York.
Oh, I was going to say, though, because it could be caused from an imbalance of your gut bacteria. So then I'm wondering, does that make the argument for us drinking kefir? Just think about it. Kefir, it's that nice mix of yeast, bacteria.
Kefir. If you want to know more about kefir, ask healthytalks.com. It's very good for the stomach. Moving on.
Yep.
CBS New York. Breakthrough holds promise for those with celiac disease.
Celiac is a painful intestinal disease where gluten, a protein in wheat and other grains, triggers the immune system to attack the patient's small intestine. The trick is how to rein in that autoimmune attack. The trigger is gluten, a protein found in wheat, barley, rye, and which damages the wall of the small intestine. If celiac gets serious enough, patients might have to take immune-suppressing drugs with significant side effects.
Increased rates of cancer and increased rates of developing infections. So the tolerance approach is to sort of reprogram the immune system.
Dr. Stephen Miller, professor of immunology at Northwestern's Feinberg School of Medicine, explained to me that up till now, keeping the immune system from reacting to gluten has been almost impossible. But today at the European Gastroenterology Week conference in Spain, his colleagues at Northwestern presented the results of a groundbreaking clinical trial to re-educate the immune system into tolerating gluten.
They are injected intravenously in the patient, and then they are presented to the immune system in such a way it's nothing to be concerned with. So it sort of reprograms the immune system.
The audio is bad.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, all I hear is reprogram the immune system. That's what they keep saying.
I don't quite get it either. So I kind of read it, and they said that they encapsulate it in some sort of nanoparticle, and for some reason, how that interacts with the body is it doesn't quite recognize it as gluten. So then it kind of learns that this thing that looks like gluten is okay. I didn't quite understand it.
Yeah. We got 15 seconds.
The genius trick is to wrap the gluten in a biodegradable nanoparticle.
There you go. Biodegradable nanoparticle.
But I still don't get how it tricks it, but hey.
A kind of Trojan horse that allows the gluten to be presented to the immune system in a non-threatening way. Patients who got the nanoparticles and then ate gluten
showed a considerably less immune response against gliadin and considerably improved intestinal biopsy.
Yeah, so intestinal biopsy, for those who don't know, that's a gold standard. So they have to stick, probe down your throat, check out your villi.
That's how you verify your celiac?
That is the official diagnosis.
And then what do most people do?
Well, I got a blood test.
Yeah, what do people so it's either blood test or just I think I have it.
I guess people do the scope.
Oh, really?
Some people do. Did you get a scope? AskAldieDoctor.com.
Let us know.
But there are people, so it's also unclear how this applies to people that say they're gluten sensitive. Mm-hmm. So those are people that don't officially have celiac and their villi are fine.
But they can go that way? Can they go to celiac?
That's what's also kind of unclear.
Because this report kind of implied they can go full-blown celiac, but I've never heard of that.
And when you read about it, they're treated as two separate things because one's autoimmune and the other it's not clear what about the wheat is causing that person to react. So, but then again, we don't know that much about our bodies that well and how the stomach all functions, and so it's all interesting. We'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Definitely. CBS Evening News.
Governor Gavin Newsom is now ordering an investigation.
I believe something is happening to manipulate those prices, but I cannot prove that.
In California, drivers pay $4.07 a gallon. In Montana, $2.71. After subtracting the cost of environmentally regulated gasoline blends and the highest gas taxes in the country, California consumers are still paying about 33 cents more. But a new analysis by the California Energy Commission found the primary cause of the increase is simply that California's retail gasoline outlets are charging higher prices.
Wow.
But is anyone surprised with how, I'm sure they're going to mention it, but rent, living in California.
Here we go.
Gas station owner Andre Vandervalk agrees. He cites high rent, wages, and insurance increases, costs he's passing on.
Every day, for instance, we're waking up with some increase in how we do business. And that's where that 30 cents is.
Are you making any more profit because you've raised your prices?
No. That's a good question. The answer is no.
Californians voted for many of the environmental regulations that led to high gas prices. Still, just the threat of an investigation may be enough to bring them down a little.
I
right.
doubt it. Those are laws.
Right.
One reason why we have to leave California.
Yeah, I can't afford to drive there.
No, you can't afford to live there. They can't afford to run a gas station.
Yeah. All right, on to our main topic. Save James. It's very controversial. It should be popping up into the mainstream now. Fox News Save James intro. It's a divorce battle.
According to James Younger's mother, she's a pediatrician, the 7-year-old child born a male identifies now as a girl. Her mother calls James Luna. She lets Luna use the girl's bathroom and has registered the child in school as a girl. James' father, Jeff Younger, says James presents himself as a boy whenever they're together. The ex-wife says the man's guilty of child abuse for refusing to treat their child as a girl. It's all headed to court now as Jeff attempts to block his ex-wife from letting their 7-year-old transition into becoming a girl.
Interesting. Yeah. Very complicated. And there's a lot of...
That was something that I wouldn't have thought about.
And then RT interviewed the father involved. So we have a lot of clips from him. So we're going to start. How did you react when you found out?
I took it very seriously because I'd had some information when I was still living with Ann Georgelis, my ex-wife. She had been putting him into timeouts and saying things like the monsters only eat boys and some odd things like that. So when I heard this, I took it very seriously. He said, "Mommy tells me I'm a girl." And I would ask him, do you look like a girl? And he'd say, "No, but Mommy tells me I'm a girl." He's never presented himself as a girl to me ever. And in fact, with me, he violently rejects any female identity. He won't wear female clothes. He won't even wear boys' brief underwears because he says it's too much like girls' underwear.
So he's basically living this bipolar life right now. He's a boy when he's with you, and he's forced to dress like a girl, or does he dress like a girl by his own will when he's with a mom?
I believe he dresses by his own will when he's with his mother. I just don't think he believes that she'll love him if he's a boy. But he dresses as a boy at her house as well.
Does she somehow tell him not to dress as a boy if he wants to dress as a boy?
I've only been in public with him as a girl twice, and on both cases when I brought boys' clothes, his mother was extremely disapproving, and in one case pulled him out of my arms, and I had to let him go so that he wouldn't get hurt, so that he wouldn't be allowed to put on boys' clothes.
That was very interesting.
Yeah, and again, this is the account from the father.
Yeah,
it's a divorce battle.
Yeah,
so take that with a grain of salt. We're still going. How is the wife communicating?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to verify it, and I sent her a text and said, are you actually telling James that he's a girl? And she's just replied simply yes, and then refused to talk to me about it. The next time that it became an issue was when he had his sort of coming out party. She took him to his 5th birthday party in a dress. She just essentially wouldn't speak to me about it.
But is it normal that, because you're just as much of a parent as she is it normal that a yes is an answer enough for your son to be heading towards a gender change?
No, it's absolutely not normal. I'm a joint managing conservator in Texas, and that means that we share parental rights. But there was one key parental right that the court did not give me, and it was the right to consent to psychiatric and psychological treatment. And that's kind of how she's gotten around this. She's saying that this is psychiatric treatment, and so I have no rights regarding this issue with my son.
That is also crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious
how it's not 50-50. Yeah, how there's not a 50-50 split.
Yeah, because mental health is pretty big.
It's very important for a child and
I think
humans.
You want both parents to be on board with that.
Yeah, to both have to sign and make the decision. RT, puberty blocking hormones.
So if everything goes ahead like James's mother wants, your 7-year-old boy will be given puberty blocking hormones, and in a couple of years will undergo sex change surgery. I mean, it's kind of hard to ask, but how does it make you feel?
Look, I consider this to be child abuse and the sexual mutilation of children on an industrial scale. So it makes me feel terrible. I can't believe that a mother would do this to her son. And I cannot believe that the state of Texas would allow it and sanction it. But we have clinics right here in Texas that do sex changes on children all the time.
Jeez. That's another disturbing
claim.
Yeah.
They do a lot of that in Mexico, apparently. A lot of sex changes in Mexico on children because a lot of clinics won't do can't really, it's hard to do up here.
Yeah, which is
from the research I've been finding, but it's hard to find research.
Yeah, we'll address that a little later.
RT, how it is abuse, legal stuff in classes.
She's saying that it's psychologically abusive to James, that I will not affirm his fake female identity. And she has gone to court and filed what's called a motion to modify. It's a thinly veiled parental termination request, saying that I have to go to a transgender education class. If I don't attend the class or achieve satisfactory marks, then I can be jailed for contempt. I can be jailed if I use male pronouns for James or show him in public as a boy, or if I cut his hair in a boy's hairstyle. And if all those things, if I do any of those things, she wants them to essentially allow no overnight stays and only a few days a month seeing my son. She wants to remove all my influence from his life.
That's
a little harsh.
Yeah.
Then I want to switch over to Fox News and just talk about, because we have someone talking about how it actually can be construed as abuse, because it's kind of what the mom, what he's claiming, the mom's claiming. So he said, she said stuff. But, as far as not affirming the identity, gender identity, check it out.
If you look at what the American Psychiatric Association says, it actually says that a child between the ages of 2 and 6 does understand what its gender is, meaning if it's a boy, as in this case, and wants to be a girl, that the child actually identifies with gender between the ages of 2 and 6. This child is 7 years old. And in order for to have the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, what it also means is that there's a consistency of 6 months of the child, in this case, identifying as a girl, not only just identifying, but wanting to wear girls' clothing, wanting to play with girls' toys, wanting to only have playmates. And so it's not totally just a matter of mom says wants to be a girl and dad says wants to be a boy. And at the end of the day, if a judge has already determined that it's in the best interest of the child for the child to go forward in this fashion, it is tantamount to child abuse of what the father is doing. But
it could. That's former Baltimore prosecutor Debbie Hines.
And see, I have another issue with what she says. Oh, well, the judge determined that this person should transition.
The judge.
Yeah. But isn't that what the judge had said initially? Or the jury, I mean?
Yeah, well, that going on. Back to RT in the interview with the father.
So James has a twin brother. Did it ever occur to you why Anne, who is a pediatrician, started treating only one of the boys like a girl?
She has a certain parenting pattern, which I probably can't go into. We'll talk about it at trial. But she tends to pick a loser child and a winner child, and James is the one who got the attention. I mean, she was reading him books on transgender kids when he was really young and setting them up as heroes for him, as young as 2.
Yeah, I don't know why I queued up that clip, but that's...
It's interesting if it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it all goes back to like gender and what is gender. And that's a lot of the problem here too, is gender is such a construct of society and all these pressures. So how can anyone decide?
Yeah.
Yes. So,
temporary orders?
Yeah, temporary orders.
So the temporary orders that I'm under before we go to final trial actually do allow me to address him as James and use male pronouns, but I cannot do that in front of third parties who know him as a girl. So basically, I can't go to his school. I keep him away from any friends he might have at school that know him as a girl. And at my home, he's known as James, and I use male pronouns. What I'm prohibited from doing right now is trying to convince him that he's actually a boy. That's prohibited me from teaching him traditional Orthodox Christian teachings on sexuality and gender.
Fair point. And then I have the follow-up from RT. Close it out really quick if you...
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that a judge is ruling against the jury in this case. And earlier this week, we saw a jury rule 11-1 in favor of the mother, which is to say that they wanted to give the mother sole conservatorship so that she would make the decisions where the boy is concerned.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the New York Times article and the CNN article, I do not believe mentioned the jury stuff, but we could look into that.
concerned. Now a judge is coming forward and he's saying, no, we're going to give the parents joint conservatorship, which is to say that they are both in charge of making decisions for the boy, which would include these medical decisions. And the judge has also taken it a step further and said that the parents can't talk to the media anymore and that they can't continue to publicize this case.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Well, that's at least encouraging. But yeah, so if you want to show that article.
Which one?
The bioethics. So some of the concerns that have been brought up is that, well, how can he decide at such a young age? And I think that's some of the issues of trans that are being overlooked right now, because there's a lot of push for these gender reassignment surgeries. And, oh, well, right away, we must start affirming them, affirming their gender, and then start going through the puberty.
Start with the transition, the physical transition.
Although we did find that there was some discrepancies over whether she was planning on giving him puberty blockers or not.
More on that later.
Yeah. But what's disturbing is because, yes, gender is dependent on religion and society. And right now, I think we're trying to think of them as more separate. So you have your genitalia that you were given at birth, and then however you want to express your identity.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this kind of push for surgery, and that's, I think, kind of disturbing.
Yeah, just the push for surgery in general. But even the push
on these kids.
Yeah.
And because you're talking about sterilization, because if you prevent them from going through puberty, that means they're not going to develop, and their genitalia won't mature. And that actually makes it more difficult for them to have a sex change later. and they're going to be sterilized at a young age.
And that's a really big decision to make.
And if you don't have enough parts down there, then the surgery to do the male to female transition is much more difficult and risky.
Interesting.
Again, how can you make all those decisions as a 7-year-old child?
Yeah,
especially since
I think that's why this is blowing up. It's because it involves a child.
Yeah.
And then you have everyone just blowing up and just going nuclear.
Well, it is very interesting.
Oh, yeah, it is. The main New York Times, Texas father says 7-year-old isn't transgender, igniting a politicized outcry. The case attracted major interest after Mr. Younger created an extensive website posting photos and videos of his children and sitting for interviews with conservative podcasts and news outlets. RT is apparently a conservative news outlet now.
Well, they're also owned by the Russians, according to YouTube.
Yeah. He raised tens of thousands of dollars in donations, $137,000 according to CNN, saying that he was fighting forced and irreversible medical procedures, though experts who treated transgender youth disputed that characterization. In a ruling on Thursday, Judge Kim Cooks in the 255th District Court in Dallas said that the parents should have joint custody and that the state could not require Mr. Younger to treat the child as a girl. She also forbade either parent from speaking to the news media and ordered Mr. Younger to shut down his site. It appeared to have been taken down on Friday. No mention of the jury stuff. Mr. Younger's characterizations of medical care for children wrestling with gender identity is hotly disputed, and the judge's ruling noted that Mrs. George, I'm going to say Georgialis, I'm going to say Miss G, had not attempted to surgically or chemically transition the child's sex as alleged. But then reading on, Governor Greg Abbott announced on Wednesday that state officials were looking into the case. On Friday, Attorney General Ken Paxton sent a letter to the State Department of Family and Protective Services asserting that Miss G had said in court that she intends to transition the boy to a girl and to administer puberty-blocking drugs as early as next year. Mr. Paxton expressed his worry that the department had not intervened in the case and called for an immediate investigation.
Yeah.
And from CNN, the court finds that the father may have initially have valid concerns regarding his children and mother making crucial decisions without his input, the ruling said. However, the court finds that the father finds comfort in public controversy and attention surrounded by the use of unfounded facts, and this thus motivated by the financial gain approximately $139,000 he had received at the cost of the protection and privacy of his children. The judge ruled that the child appears comfortable as a male, female, or gender non-specific.
Wow, that was
a lot of back and forth.
Yeah. I think the moral of this story is probably best to let the child grow up and
yes,
get out of both of the parents' control.
Yes,
before
absolutely.
deciding what gender they want to be.
Yep.
And the other thing with that too, so something that a lot of people aren't talking about, that about 80 to 90% of children that have gender dysphoria actually outgrow it once they go through puberty.
That is something nobody is talking about.
Yeah. So there's some interesting studies there too, because again, it is so hard to determine how can you say what this child should do for the rest of their life. You know? So you have to take these surgical and chemical decisions lightly.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yep.
To virtue signaling.
Yeah.
By Spotify. All right.
At Spotify, having a diverse workforce and being inclusive is important so everyone can feel like themselves at work.
So what we did is to come up with a list of essentially every medical procedure that trans people might need.
Basically, Spotify said, oh, we didn't realize there was a problem there. We'll fix it. And that was...
What?
I just love this shot.
Oh, yeah, the shot. Yeah, we might have to...
Which is going to go into...
That is...
my next problem.
Because if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, these people are all sitting in this building, skyscraper in San Francisco, overlooking San Francisco.
Yeah.
In what the tallest building, apparently. And they're talking, sipping coffee and talking about... Moving on with the clip.
Pretty amazing.
As of 2019, we now offer masculinization and feminization treatments recommended by the World Professional Association
World Professional Association for Transgender Health. My problem with them is these are the people that are pushing the surgery. So now they're trying to define what it is to be a trans
to be
person.
Trans, exactly.
And that is my other issue.
And Spotify's defining it too, and it's real expensive.
And apparently, it requires you have to have a bunch of surgeries.
Yep.
And what's more disturbing, if you look at the World Professional Association, they recommend that you get facial reconstruction because, you got to look good and conform to all these cis beauty standards.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a question of vanity. For someone who needs these things, it's really a question of being able to be perceived, as themselves.
It's feeling like you need these things. That's kind of a problem. Think about it.
Isn't that going against trans acceptance? We should be accepting people with however they want to look and express themselves.
Yes. And all this is saying, all you poor trans people that can't afford to go to college and work at Spotify with us, you're all fucked because you can't get the surgery, so fuck you.
Yeah, so I guess that means that you're not actually trans or you never get a fully transition. That is so wrong. So now they're being so elitist, saying that you need these surgeries, which you don't. You can express your gender however you want. You don't have to have surgeries. And let's move to Laverne Cox.
Laverne Cox and Democracy Now!
Yeah.
I'm really at a loss because I know it's intersectional. I know that it's about employment. I know it's about healthcare. I know it's about homelessness and having access to all of these things to keep us out of harm's way that so many of us don't have access to. The unemployment rate in the trans community is 3 times the national average, 4 times that for trans people of color. The majority of us make less than $10,000 a year. And so when you cannot make a living, you find yourself in street economies. You find yourself homeless. That makes you more of a target of violence. And so we
just go work at Spotify.
Yeah.
Just go work at Spotify.
Listen to that disconnect there. She's talking about how these people can't get jobs. They can't survive.
Yeah. Just go work. We're going to work at Spotify. Everything's going to be good. Yeah. No.
There's so many things that we have to do as a culture to end this violence.
Yep.
And we showing up tomorrow at the Supreme Court, letting your friends and family know that it is not okay to discriminate against trans people, that when we are living our lives, so many times just walking down the street as a black trans woman, people saw it as some sort of affront to them when men would find themselves attracted to me because I was walking down the street, and they would get upset about that. I talked a lot about Alon Nettles' case, and she was just walking down the street, a black trans woman in 2013, and 2 men catcalled her, realized she was trans, and beat her until she died.
That is...
Jeez. One more, Katie Couric, Laverne Cox in 2014.
I think that the preoccupation with transition and with surgery objectifies trans people, and then we don't get to really deal with the real lived experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She said it
exactly.
very well.
7 seconds.
Reality of trans people's lives is that still often we're targets of violence. We experience discrimination disproportionately to the rest of the community. Our unemployment rate is twice the national average. If you're a trans person of color, it's 4 times the national average. The homicide rate in the LGBT community is highest amongst trans women. And when we focus on transition, we don't actually get to talk about those things. There's a young woman named Ilan Nettles who on August 17th was just walking down the street with some friends, minding her own business, and she was catcalled by a couple of guys. And one of them, once they realized she was trans, she was beaten into a coma, and 5 days later she died. This is the reality of so many trans people's lives in this country, trans women of color whose lives are in danger simply for being who they are.
Yes.
And
trans of color.
And that was back in 2014, exactly. That second one. And they still have these issues. It still are not talked about.
No.
Instead, no, we're virtue signaling with Spotify. And
it's because it's poor people.
Yeah. It's poor people of color.
Of color. And trans. So you've got a lot of labels that society's just, marginalized. It's horrible. It's bad. But then again, Spotify, go work there. Yeah.
Well, something else that I saw that Laverne Cox said recently is even she said that she'd been saving up money to get facial surgery, but then now she realized, this is my face.
Wow.
Yeah, this is
awesome.
This is my beautiful face. I'm a trans woman.
Awesome.
It's what God gave me. So
there you go.
I think that's the message. You need to be who you are. You don't have to get all these surgeries if you want to later.
Yeah, do it.
But
a lot of people don't have the access to get surgeries in general because they're so expensive.
And you shouldn't need that surgery to make your transition complete. That comes from mental health and accepting yourself.
Yep.
And that goes to just loving each other and, being more aware of these Black trans issues and talking about the real issues.
Yeah.
Other than surgeries.
There you go. We record Healthy Talk Show live on Mondays and Thursdays at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 3 a.m. UTC. Come join the fun over at healthytalkshow.com/live.
Please help financially produce the show by heading over to healthytalkshow.com/support. Your financial contribution will ensure we remain unbiased, commercial-free, and help us pay for things like rent and other bills. Our show is value for value. If you find value in the show, please provide value back by visiting healthytalkshow.com/support.
Another way to provide value is feedback. Our email, ask@healthytalkshow.com. Give us a call at 509-878-3229 and healthytalkshow.com/social for all of our social media links. Love and light.
Love and light.